Hi, everyone. My name is Tarik. I'm based in New York, and this is my first afikra community presentation, so I'm really excited to be here. I'm an avid listener of the podcasts. Today, I'll be forwarding an article I found on Raseef22 titled Mariem Hassan, The Voice of the Sahara. So this article is actually in Arabic, as are, I believe, most written pieces on Raseef22. It's this massive media platform, and in my opinion, a great resource for all things MENA related. This was written by Mauritanian author Ahmed Walid Giddo. He focuses on events within that region, the Western Sahara. The reason why I chose this article in particular is because I wanted something that showcased Mariem Hassan's life and legacy, and this happened to be released a little after her passing. So it was a nice homage to her. I think it helps explain who she was, where she came from, how her music career started, and what she stood for. I also use other sources just to confirm things. So just a little introduction. Mariem Hassan was born in 1958 in a village near the town of Sahara, Western Sahara. At the time of her birth, it was a Spanish colony, but today is under Moroccan jurisdiction. She was one of 10 siblings of a camel and goat herding family. And I thought that was really cool because in interviews, she's credited her family for her musicality. She had an uncle who was a poet, her aunt was a dancer and singer, her brother became a guitarist. So really cool to see that dynamic. Unfortunately, Mariem's life took an unexpected turn due to civil unrest between Sahrawi resistance groups and the Moroccan government. And in 1975, her and her family were displaced and later settled in a refugee camp in Tindouf, Algeria. In the camps, Mariem started a career in healthcare. She was a nurse up until 2002. And at the same time, she started working on her music. And her music career was heavily inspired by the Sahrawi independence movement. So in the camps, Saharan rock was born. She's even credited to be the mother of Saharan rock and the voice of the Sahrawi movement. What I thought is fascinating about this genre in particular is that really it's a concoction of so many things that you think wouldn't work together, but they truly do, and she does this brilliantly. So to keep it simple, Saharan rock is a mixture of howl, which is traditional Sahrawi music sung in the Hassaniya dialect of Arabic, and the blues and jazz being incorporated too. I will say though that even howl itself draws inspiration from several music styles. So it's a very complex music style that she utilizes, but it works so well and it's so entertaining. So where did this all begin? She began singing in her teens, and this was in the camps. And as a teen, she was actually signed under a Madrid-based record label in the 80s, but still remained in the camps and was recording there. Around the same time, Mariem joined a band, Shahid al-Wali, which was named after the first president of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. And it was, during her time in the band where she was exposed to things outside of, the region she grew up in, and she was able to tour across Europe. And during this time, Mariem actually didn't have any solo recordings. She usually recorded stuff with bands, with other artists. And it wasn't until the early 2000s where her solo career started. And this was when she relocated to Spain to focus on expanding that. So just a little timeline. She's released a total of 3 solo albums, and each one played a significant role in uplifting Sahrawi movements. Her first album, Deseos, was inspired by the 2005 Sahrawi Intifada against the Moroccan government. In 2010, she released Shauka, and this is when she began to start incorporating a lot of the Western undertones that you get from her music. But this was also a really interesting period for her and for Sahrawi people, because later that year, large protests started to occur in the Gdeim Zik camp in the Western Sahara. And scholars like Noam Chomsky actually argue that this could have been the trigger for the Arab Spring, that we all witnessed in 2011. And inspired by the large wave of protests across the Arab world, that we know as the Arab Spring, she released her third album, L'Ayun Gdat. In Hassaniya, that means L'Ayun is on fire, and L'Ayun is the capital of the Western Sahara. In almost every song of her album, you could see the influences she, brought in from jazz and the blues. You could always see instruments being incorporated into her performances. So she'd always be in a group of guitarists. There were brass instruments. And it was just a really cool dynamic, and it worked. She performed all over the world, which I thought was really cool, across Europe, Australia, New Zealand. And one thing I thought was very interesting was that she headlined the Sahrawi Cultural Festival in Venezuela. When I looked at diplomatic relations between the Sahrawi people and the Sahrawi Republic, and other countries like Venezuela and others that are, similarly politically aligned, actually have been recognizing Sahrawi autonomy for a long time. So there are good ties between them. Here's a clip from one of her live performances. I will say before, watching this video, or if you're listening, just try to notice the dynamics between Mariem and the instrumentalists on stage. What made this even more interesting is that many of the instrumentalists that she sings with, or that she sang with, weren't actually Sahrawi or were not permanent members of her group. Many were European, some were from the region like Senegal, Mauritania, but it was really cool that the dynamics were so smooth and everything fit so well. And obviously the whole time Mariem really was the star on the stage, but gave everyone their moment. So enjoy the clip, it's great. It's a song called Arab al-Arab, which is one of my personal favorites.
الحق اللي بيا شعلت فيها جحيم كفاح الحرية والتصميم العظيم كفاح الحرية والتصميم العظيم والتصميم العظيم والتصميم العظيم.
So yeah, that was sensational. I mean, just looking at the dynamic between everyone, and obviously Mariem being the star. And one thing to notice here is that her lyrics are super meaningful. For example, she has another song that I'm not going to showcase here, but the chorus of the song is Hayyu ya Thawar Hayyu Kulna Thawriyin. And this is like a big, big slogan that's used in Sahrawi movements and protests, and it's basically her, motivating everyone to be a revolutionary, and she really encapsulates that with her music. So, yeah. So there's a lot of work on Mariem's career and her legacy. I found documentaries, you can find them on YouTube, even books, and I also found this really cool graphic novel. Here you can see like cool depictions of Mariem, where showcasing what she stood for, which was Sahrawi liberation. This was in Spanish. A lot of the work that you see on Mariem is in Spanish, probably due to the ties of the Sahara previously being a Spanish colony. But yeah, this is the biggest mark that she left for her fans and her people, that the movement of Sahrawi independence is of value. And she parted this message, advocating for Sahrawi autonomy in 2015 when she passed from cancer. So I'll leave you here with some song recommendations. These are ones that I personally really enjoy, and here are also some links for further reading. I really enjoyed sharing Mariem's work with you all. I've only recently been exposed to her, and honestly, I'm hooked. I never grew up knowing much about Sahrawi people, their movement, let alone their music, and it's definitely something I consider you all to look into further. So feel free to contact me for more info or share info with me. Here's my email, and thank you all.